Hi, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of UB on the Move, brought to you by UrbanBound. As a reminder, UrbanBound has built relocation management software to materially improve the experience for an employee who's having to be relocated, physicians, etc., and at the same time helping organizations save a tremendous amount of money. We're very excited for today's guest. I'm going to turn it over to my co-host, Jeff Ellman. I'm Michael Krassman, and Jeff's going to be introducing our guest today. Jeff, take it away.
Thank you, Michael. I am so happy to have the opportunity to introduce Christy Bray Ricks today to the podcast. She serves as the Vice President of Provider Talent for Ardent Health Services, located in Nashville, Tennessee. Ardent has earned a reputation as one of the industry's strongest and most innovative hospitals, operating in 6 states. Christy has extensive experience in the healthcare industry, having served in a variety of roles. She's skilled in provider relations, team building, process improvement, and leadership. Christy received her BS in Health and Sports Sciences from the University of Oklahoma while working as a student athletic trainer, and completed her master's degree in healthcare administration and management at Colorado State University. Christy stays very busy with her sons, Orson Allen, age 13, Walter Aaron, age 10, and niece Arabella Sue, age 13 as well. Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So Christy, if you can start off by sharing a little bit about yourself and how you ended up working within the healthcare industry.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I attended the University of Oklahoma, so worked as a student athletic trainer. So to me, that's my first dipping my toe in the water, I guess you would say, into healthcare. From there, I worked for a growing health system in Fort Collins, Colorado for several years, and then found myself relocating to Nashville, the mecca of all healthcare, and just have continued to grow and serve our communities, really focused on the mission of saving lives.
That's great. Over the course of your career, you've been in HR now for a bit. How would you say that you've seen it, really change materially, and maybe even where do you see it kind of going in the future?
Sure. I think within the talent acquisition space, really the biggest issue right now is just the search for talent. So to find that human resource that is either trained or even wants to do the job and work in healthcare, it's really hard stuff that we do every day. So I think the largest, our biggest issue right now is just finding the talent that's interested to go into either medicine, if they're a physician or a nurse, or, ultimately just any role within healthcare. We've just seen a huge lag. And I think across the country, you've seen that in terms of workforce. But in healthcare, again, just with the complexity of the positions and the training that's usually required, just puts us in a greater lag to find that talent.
What are you doing right now to stand out from the competition? I know there's a battle for talent. There's a very limited supply of what's needed to fill these roles. And what are you doing differently than others?
Sure. So my space really is the physician advanced practice provider recruitment. So when we're looking at physicians, there isn't a whole bunch of them to go get out in the world, but our locations play a big role. Physicians still choose where they work based on the geography, either where they have family or where they've trained. And so we have some really great locations at Ardent that we're able to attract the talent to. I think that ultimately being a great employer, just like any of us would want, physicians are humans too. So just making sure that, we provide great operators that can help them succeed in their clinics and their practices, the equipment they need in their hospital. As you mentioned, Ardent's doing a lot of innovative things with technology and trying to assist and grow how they're able to practice, and then how we're able to meet our customers where they want to receive care.
Christy, can you give an example of that, the innovative technology that you're using within physician recruitment? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I think we're seeing, the resources that we have, some have been around a long time in terms of sourcing databases and getting data, contact data to call candidates or to email them or maybe send them a postcard. I think we're starting to see a lot more in the technology space where it's making connections between people who went to school. So Ardent is a development partner of a software called Winnow. And really what you're trying to do is make those connections, within that data of folks who went to school together or trained together. And then, that propensity to want to practice together again and make some of those referral sources for us. We still do paper mailers. We're not faxing anymore, but we do go to conferences a lot. My team is on the road for us, and just any way that we can reach out and gain those contacts. Physicians definitely they can name their price and their location, and so we have to find what appeals to them and what they want to do in their practice.
Another topic that we hear in the same vein when we speak to a lot of different companies is just around retention. Mm-hmm. And in particular, it seems like in healthcare, retention has become more of a problem in the last, call it 4 or 5 years. And I'm just curious what you're seeing in terms of, ways to maybe combat that a bit, and any ideas that you have to share with the audience around that.
Sure. I think a big issue is actually the retirement. And as physicians are, aging out of the workforce, I think a recent MGMA study showed that I think within the next couple of years, half or more of our physicians will be 55 or older. It was 2 in 5 will be 55 or older. And so when you think about that in workforce planning, it takes a long time to grow and train a physician. And so we're woefully behind to fill the gaps in the future. I think that physicians have so many opportunities to choose when they want to work, where they want to work, how much they want, just all those things where if it's a gig job or some type of locums temporary type job, those are a lot more attractive. New grads coming out of school are looking at those as career options. Becomes harder for me to say, come work in a clinic 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. I don't think any of us, we are all sitting in our homes right now. I don't think any of us want to go back to that. And we have to pivot really quickly to keep that talent, or the talent will make the decision for us and go work for an employer who supports that.
That makes sense. Are there any specific specialties that you are finding to be the most difficult to recruit for?
Yeah, so my top 5, GI, so gastroenterology has long fallen, it's always in the top. I think we're seeing a large amount of ENT go out of the workforce. That's a retirement issue. They're aging out there, and kids aren't going into that field. Hem-onc is become into the top 5. OBGYN also, and I think it's a burden, a function of call burden. I also think there's potential for some of the legislative issues that are causing people to not want to go into it, afraid of being sued, and other issues with that. I think cardiology still lives up there, but primary care has always been our largest deficit in terms of that front entry into health system. If it's pediatrics or, family medicine, outpatient internal medicine, we've always been consistently behind. Thankfully, we have advanced practice providers who can fill a lot of those needs from a primary care standpoint, so people still have access to care. But those are my top 5. There's probably more. My sourcing director would probably give me a longer list, but that's my top 5.
Yeah. If we had enough time, we'd probably list all the specialties.
So we talk with a lot of organizations that, in their words, they're really struggling with not only attracting talent, but even the onboarding and relocation of talent. I want to quickly touch on the onboarding side of things. What are some of the things that you've seen organizations do when it comes to ensuring they have a successful onboarding of a new physician, APP, nurse, et cetera?
Yeah, I think I've worked in a couple of organizations that had really strong onboarding programs, and I think it really is having that high touch. So when we do a candidate site visit and bring them, usually their family, to see the community and interview locally, we call that red carpet. So we roll out the red carpet when they come for their site visit, And what you see in a lot of organizations, we do that. They sign the contract, they come to work for us. It's usually 6 months, maybe even a year or two after that. We kind of drop off. We do less engagement. We're kind of in this, odd phase. So I think from an onboarding standpoint, if you've got a single point of contact that can manage all of the pieces that have to get done. So as you know, for physicians, it's credentialing and privileging. It's a lot of paperwork. Additionally, it's finding a house. It's getting their lab coat. So there's a wide spectrum of departments that have to touch the onboarding process for it to be successful. So anytime you can have a white glove service from a relocation vendor that ties into that. So think of having a concierge there to help you through the process. And it really is, if you've got a single point of contact who's managing all of the activity that has to get done, that's where you're most successful. It always starts your retention process, because if they have I've had this happen, in my career, they've had a bad relocation. Their spouse is grumpy, their kids are grumpy, the physicians, they just don't, it just takes a while, if ever, that you can smooth that over and make it better. So, onboarding is key to their success, immediately and then into the future.
Yeah, I'd love to pick your brain on, you mentioned like relocation, and something that, amazes Michael and I and the entire Earthbound team is when we look at healthcare organizations, we talked about the struggle to attract talent, and then they have their choice of job opportunities. But oftentimes we find that most healthcare organizations are all dropping the ball when it comes to that relocation moment in time, which is, we think you're a great physician. Here's your job offer. Here's your start date. And here's up to $15,000. Go figure out the logistics on your own and submit your receipts.
Right.
We hope it goes well for you and your family. Why is it that the majority of healthcare systems, I know this is changing right now, but in the last, call it decade, that's been the way that organizations are relocating talent, and it's failing miserably?
Yeah, I think sometimes the constraints we're under to make sure that their package, their incentives and their salary and all of that are within fair market value. We're trying to work within some tight constraints without realizing or thinking outside the box on that, because we wouldn't move an executive that way. So why would we do that to our top talent in a physician, who ultimately is a revenue generator for our system? So I think many organizations have just plugged a number in and picked that up because that's what fit within the calculation, and not thought about the experience of what the employee is going through. I have moved, a few times through my childhood with my dad's job, and then myself here to Nashville. And I can tell you it makes a huge difference, to have that phone call with the relocation company. They took care of everything. I'm still working and trying to get, what I need done. And so I do think it will become more and more apparent just as we have to cater to some of these needs, honestly, because they're making decisions based on that. And if you have a bad move in your lifetime, either you're not going to move again, or you're pretty specific with what those requirements would be.
Yeah. What we found is you may love your job, but if you don't love the community, your kids are not in the right school system, whatever it might be, that could be a reason why the family picks up and leaves. So it goes back to, you mentioned that rolling out the red carpet during the on-site visit. We're learning more and more how important that is to make the right decisions, to get excited about the community. And that usually leads to higher offer to acceptance rates. And then if they do accept, they do make the right decisions.
Right.
They're retained for the long haul.
I think a key difference too,
Christy,
Jeff.
actually, just to kind of build on.
Sorry, Michael. I think a key difference too is that with physicians, I said we kind of plug the number into the calculation, but with other employees, relocation is just seen as a benefit on top of. And so, I think that's a difference that we as healthcare systems have to start thinking of, that it's an employee benefit, just like offering, health benefits, medical, dental, vision. Relocation is in that same vein in a benefit structure versus laid on top in a compensation structure.
Yeah. Maybe to build on that point a little bit, what would you say to organizations who still have that mentality of just giving, a dollar value, and they kind of view a relocation benefit, let's say, as an expense versus an investment in some of these topics that we've already been talking about, retention and obviously having a red carpet experience when you're being brought into the organization. How would you frame it for a company that's maybe trying to get over that mentality
Sure.
of expense versus investment?
Yeah, it's kind of good practice. That's where we are right now. We're trying to figure out how to make that investment on behalf of our physicians primarily, so that they are set up for success. So, our organization is undergoing some of those conversations right now. I don't know. I don't know if it's, reframing it as a benefit, like we talked about, and kind of moving it out. It is difficult with what we were required to show in a physician compensation package, to make sure that, again, we're within fair market value. So a lot of the conversation goes back to the pure numbers of it. You don't see that in executive search. You don't necessarily see that even if it's a VP or another director type position. There might be a cap, but the cap is usually more forgiving than what health systems have historically given physicians, by about 10 grand. It's significant, I think, in many places where we've undervalued that physician coming to practice in our community.
Yeah, we do feel like that's starting to change based on, say, in the last, probably since COVID.
Yeah.
More and more organizations are learning that this has to be a core part of their hiring strategy, is to have a robust relocation experience program. Christy, I had a chance to visit your team out in Nashville, and I left with my jaw dropped. I was so impressed by the team building and the leadership I saw and the innovation from spending some time with you and the team. I would love to know, when you think about Ardent and what you've done at that organization, what makes you the most proud?
Probably the growth that the team has had, being able to add some key team members, primarily sourcing strategists. They're my people that get the foundational work done. At Ardent, the pieces were here. It was just reorganizing them, and we did that throughout the whole system, really trying to move the departments in a forward way, either from an efficiency standpoint or provide some more resource to our hospitals and our local markets. But, tremendous growth. I think now we've got some pretty amazing data to show the work the team is doing, and hope to just continue that, to get better, building our applicant tracking system and developing better processes for onboarding, relocation, all of the things, as you've said, to really get to a great spot to support our candidates.
Great. Can you actually share any examples about, maybe a particularly challenging talent acquisition problem that you guys were facing and how you were able to solve it, or how the team was able to solve it?
Yeah, we drive a lot of employee referrals. So either a physician referral or a nurse referral. And so those are some longstanding programs that many of our markets have really leveraged to their advantage. And I can see, half of their hires that they have brought in are through that employee referral process. We have revitalized that to spread it further across the organization and, make that have more alignment to what we're, the goals of what we're trying to fill. But I think that's key. If systems don't have an employee referral program for any position, honestly, within their TA team, I think that's a miss, because it is a fairly simple piece to put in place. It isn't hugely expensive, but Ardent has historically done really, really well. And to me, that means if you are referring one of your friends to come work for us, that you also you think we're a good place to work. So I think that is a great story to tell.
Right.
Christy, is there a technology platform that you use to track the referrals that are happening within your company?
So right now it's just pretty basic and organic. We will be tracking that through our new applicant tracking system. But it's a pretty simple, form. This is the person I know, and here's their CV. So it doesn't have to get very complex. I think sometimes it's just verifying, who did the referral come from. As you know, we work with contingency vendors and sometimes retained search firms. And so that procurement of the candidate is a key piece within recruitment, both on the permanent side and the temporary staffing side. Who brought that name forward and how do we compensate them for it?
Great. As someone who has obviously extensive experience in talent acquisition, where do you see the biggest challenges being and the biggest opportunities coming from over the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years in this space?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge will be how health systems adapt to offset the workforce shortage. We're in the very front end of the physician shortage, so it will get worse. I don't think it'll get better in any of our lifetimes, the three of us here. Maybe for my kids, if they choose.
Scary.
It is scary. It's very scary, but the gaps are just so big, and it's really that retirement cliff as those baby boomers are aging out. But we, within the Ardent family have a strong joint venture with the University of Texas at Tyler. So the first class in the new School of Medicine started this year. And I think more work either in developing and establishing schools is needed across the country, opening up residency slots. So any of that work in terms of the training and education is just, we just really need that because there is a huge gap. The cost of going into healthcare is substantial, and I think there's so many career choices now that kids have. We have to make it more attractive for them to want to come and be a physician and take care of these patients. So it's an odd spot, but I like the investment into the education and trying to grow our own is what I think is exciting.
During your introduction today, we talked about Ardent being one of the most innovative healthcare systems out there. What are some of those key innovations that you've seen within Ardent that's helped you attract and retain talent, or any pieces of HR software that you really love?
Oh man, there's a lot of clinical innovation that we're doing on the patient care side. If it's Care Harmony or Care AI, we're doing just a lot of different partnerships and leveraging that. We do have a kind of an innovation platform called SwitchPoint, and they look at all kinds of things all the time. So really looking to see what might push us forward as an organization and set us apart. Some of it is to help with that lack of staffing, using a little bio button that can monitor the patient's vitals when they're in bed. Maybe it reduces the need of, the nurses it frees up their time, doesn't reduce the need for nurses, but frees up their time because you've got this intelligence and that technology watching over the patients. So I think just starting to think smarter about some of those care pieces that we could leverage technology for.
That's great. We're going to switch over to some fun questions, some light stuff. What purchase of $100 or less has most positively impacted your life in the last 6 months or recently in general? If you can be as specific as possible, model where you found it.
Yeah.
$100 or less.
Man.
And Christy, while you're thinking about that, I'm giving you a moment to think about that. We recently had a guest on who talked about this eye mask that she bought, like 30 blinks or something like that. I did buy it on Amazon within 24 hours, and now I can't sleep without it. So we learn from what our guests say is something that they've purchased.
This is a selfish question for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know.
A Lone Ranger in my elbow.
With your mask. Sure. Mine might be the new, it's called Athletic Greens or AG1. That might be my new kind of fountain of youth holy grail. So it's, your vitamins and your probiotic drink. Yeah. That might be my new one.
I've been seeing a lot of ads for that, and I'm very compelled to want to buy it because I'm very into finding those like life hacks myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're curious to know if you had to give a TED talk on any topic, but something that you felt you were really passionate about, what would that topic be? And what would you want to cover in your TED talk?
So outside of healthcare, college football, that would be my next one.
Tell us more.
Well, I think just, growing up in Oklahoma, we have the Sooners, and they're, basically like a pro team. That's how I was raised, with Coach Switzer there at the helm. And yeah, I could talk college football for days with anybody. So that would be a pretty fun TED Talk for me.
That's awesome. Jeff, any other questions from you?
Yeah, I had one last question that I was just curious about too, because knowing that you're into leadership, and I'm constantly going to conferences, and you're usually the one who's speaking in the conferences, I assume there's either books that you've read or blogs that you subscribe to. Are there any resources, any blogs, books, if you're a TA leader, CHRO, head of physician recruitment, things that you think people should be reading to skill up? What would those be?
Sure. Yeah, I was looking at my bookcases this way in my office. My team over the summer, we did a book club on the Adam Grant book, Think Again, and really enjoyed just, unpacking that, where you're pausing in some of your decision making to rethink. And back to our conversation about healthcare, we need to get comfortable with change, and some of these things that we have to do, we need to do them more quickly to adapt. And so, I think within that book, he really helps you to do that. So it was fun to go through that with my team over the summer, and then have somebody come in and really dig into that book. I love Simon Sinek. I love Brene Brown. There's just so many great things to read. I think following podcasts to give you that quick little, either if it's motivation or inspiration or just thought-provoking ideas. So I try and read. Sometimes, reading to me will need to be an audible book, because you just don't have the time to kind of sit. But it feels like you could listen at a quicker pace.
Absolutely. And actually, I don't know if you'd ever do this, but I'll increase the speed, to 1.5 or whatever, and you can still generally hear everything being read to you, in the book shortens even more. So that's great.
I imagine it sounded like the chipmunks, 2 or 3
Right.
times the speed. Michael consumes information quickly.
I don't know. Well, anyways, I really want to thank our guest today, Christy, Bray, Ricks, for joining us. We really appreciate your time and all the insights you shared with the audience. I learned a lot. I took a lot of notes myself. And we will look forward to seeing you all at our next episode of UB on the Move. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thanks.